Hello there, lovely people, it's Alex from Nintendo Life here, and today I'm going to be talking about these things right here. ARMS. Now, I've been hearing an awful lot of people saying that ARMS isn't going to be very good. It's basically just Wii Sports Boxing. It's just Punch-Out. It's this, it's that. It's not going to be very good, and I'm here to put a stop to all that because I think it's going to be pretty lovely. Now, if you don't know what ARMS is a multiplayer and a single-player fighting game from a third-person perspective that uses motion controls. Yes, it uses motion controls, but to be honest with you, I have played ARMS and I was really impressed with what I saw, and I'm not a very big advocate for motion controls. I mean, on the whole, I think they're fine, but when it comes to a fighting game or something like that, they're kind of, you know, a bit pointless. But I found myself really enjoying ARMS, and I think it just came down to the fact that the motion controls have come so far since just the days of Wii Sports Boxing and things like that. To even move left and right, you've got to move the controllers left and right like that and tilt them in unison. You can't just do one or the other, and you can't jolt them, otherwise you'll do a punch and things like that. It really is very refined, you know, it's not just relying on, say, a control stick to move around and then wham, you do that to punch, although that is what you do to punch. But besides the motion controls, there's also so much more going on underneath everything else. If you look at it just from the surface, you think, yeah, basically you move around left and right and you go wham, and that's how you punch. But there's so much more going on. For example, one of the things you can do is you can block attacks. Now, I'm not suggesting this is going to be something to write home about, but it is a big deal when it comes to these sort of fighting games. The ability to be able to block is so fundamental, and if they hadn't included it, it would have been a big problem. I'm not really saying they should be honored for putting it in, but it's good that it's there. You can also jump by pressing, I believe it's the R button. Is it the R button? It's one of the buttons. You press one of the buttons on the top, which is like one of the shoulder buttons, not the triggers, the shoulder buttons. I think it's R. And jumping brings with it a whole host of interesting different techniques and things like that, because, okay, yes, you've jumped out of the way, you've avoided, but then it's very clear where you're going to land, so your opponent can take that into consideration and then land a quick sucker punch when you're least expecting it. So you got to be careful how you use it. There really is, for the whole game, there is so much more sort of tactical know-how going on. You can't just go in and flail your arms around and do really well. It really just doesn't work that way. And I should know, because although I was quite good at the game when I had a go at it, I did get my arse handed to me by a little person known as Sir James Patrick Bowden of Toppington Hat. Games industry insider jokes, they're particular. Another thing that really struck me as being surprising about ARMS is they're really pushing the whole motion control thing, and that's fine, you know, if you want your game to be that, then that's good, but you can also just use standard button controls in the final version of the game. I unfortunately didn't get a chance to use the button controls, because it would have been really interesting to see how maybe, you know, so because you can curve punches and things like that, but instead of just punching like that, if you punch and curve like that, just like you would in real life, you can curve the punches and try and catch people off guard. It's really cool, but I'd be really interested to see how that works with standard button controls, but unfortunately, that was not to be had, which made me a little bit sad. It's really one of those games where you don't really understand it just by watching videos and things like that. I know a number of people who've seen it and they say it looks great, and I also know a considerably more people who've looked at it and said they think it looks crap. But I thought the same thing the first time I saw it. I thought, you know, it's just another, like I said at the beginning, you know, it's just Wii Sports Boxing all over again, but there is so much more to it, and I really didn't appreciate it until I got my hands on it. When I first stood there and I got the controllers and I thought to myself, yeah, just punchy, but then the attendee said, okay, now you select your character like this, you hold the controllers like this, and you do this and you do that, and now you need to select your different fists, because you have to select a different fist for both hands. I mean, you don't have to, but you've got a selection of 3 different fists that you can use, and I don't know how many there are total, but I think in the demo maybe there were about 8, 7 different fists, don't quote me on that. But they have all sorts of different abilities, you know, sort of, you got the standard punch, and you got things that are like boomerangs, and you got things that are like spiky triple missile things that shoot forward and things like that, and you've got big fists. Now they really are a massive pain in the ass. They're really slow, but they're very powerful. Pretty much what you'd expect a big fist to do, really. But anyway, I'm getting off the point, because the point I'm trying to make is that ARMS really has got so much more going on for it than I think a lot of people understand, and to the point where it has even been nominated to be a proper esport in the like users choice category or something like that. I've completely forgotten what it was. I'll look it up. It turns out it is the Evo 2017 Players Choice spot. So there's one game that will be chosen. There are 9 games selected, including things like Mortal Kombat XL, Killer Instinct, Pokken tournaments in there as well. Pokken tournament. I'm still calling it Pokken. That's bad. And even Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo. A Street Fighter 2 variant. There are so many. That is huge. This game hasn't even been announced. People have been voting for it before they've even played it. That is insane. I don't think I've ever seen a game, have that sort of accolade before beyond something like Tekken or something like that, because they're established. People know what they're going to get when they play a Tekken game. People know what they're going to get when they play a Street Fighter game. People don't know what they're going to get when they play ARMS. If it does go the distance and it does become, sort of a staple of esports, well, maybe not a staple, but sort of it features in esports or something along those lines, I'd be really interested to see how, people using the button controls would go up against people with the motion controls. Would the motion controls offer some sort of advantage? I imagine maybe not, but who knows? We don't know how it works. Then that's a really exciting prospect. The idea that somebody, who just comes in and flails around looking like a madman is somebody who has maybe physically trained themselves beyond, sort of what you'd usually get with an esport, which is basically just sort of endurance and maybe stamina and, all to do with more of the brain, but, physically, going with their arms like the weedy little noodles I've got here, to physically train those. And for that to give you an advantage in a video game is a really exciting prospect. It opens things up so tremendously. I don't want to talk too much about the competitive side of things because I really don't know an awful lot about competitive esports and things like that, especially when it comes to fighting games, because I know people have, really need those sort of split-second absolute minimal lag when it comes to input lag and things like that. I know it a little bit from playing Smash Bros, but really nothing even close to a competitive thing, so I'm not going to hang around on this. But there's one last thing I want to talk about, and it's only really a sort of a minor thing, but it really stood out to me and it really sort of resonated, if you like to use that word. And it was the arenas themselves, because sort of it's just okay, it's just an arena, and you can talk about arena hazards and things like that, like in Super Smash Bros, and generally they're not really very good competitively. I'm coming back to the competitive thing again, aren't I? But every single arena seems to have different things going on with it. I only managed to play one of them, and it was basically just a standard square arena. I believe it was the one they showed in the trailer, where you've got sort of bouncy boards at the side, and I thought, okay, well, you get punched off, and that's just to sort of bounce you off. It's to give you just basically to prevent there being an invisible wall where you can't do anything. But you can actually use it to your advantage. You can jump up there, jump off, and it's almost like faking out in many ways. You can jump up there and jump off, and you get this large leap, and maybe your opponent doesn't know exactly where you're going to land and things like that. It adds another thing to the mix, and that's using the arena in a really intelligent way to change up the formula, and I think it's great. There was also another stage I didn't get to play because I only played the one I just previously mentioned, which I made very abundantly clear, but it's sort of almost like a long, I don't want to use the word corridor because that suggests you can't move left and right, or well, side to side, but you can. It's more like sort of a long, almost like a very wide pathway, or maybe sort of an oblong courtyard or something like that, and it's got pillars and things like that, and it's again just something else to really mix it up. The more sort of variety that you get with something like Super Smash Bros rather than just Street Fighter, sort of, I like Street Fighter, I'm not mad about it, but the environments, the arenas are always very similar. It's, as far as I can tell, it's only ever just a visual difference, when it comes to the actual fights, at least in Street Fighter 2, which is the one I've actually played, thinking about it, I haven't played any of the others. It just comes down to a purely visual thing, and the fighting is nearly always the same regardless of the arena, and the arenas look great, but it doesn't change things up in any way, and that's something that I think is really, really exciting about ARMS. And again, it's only a little thing, but it's the little things that count. Just ask my girlfriend. But anyway, that's what I think. What do you think about this so-called army thing? Do you like it? Do you think it looks complete nonsense? Hopefully, maybe I've convinced you to give it maybe a bit more of a shot. I'm not expecting you to immediately say, oh, I love ARMS, they're fantastic. Well, it's fantastic. I'm going back to the stupid joke I did at the start. But if I have convinced you to give it a little bit more of a chance, then please let me know with a comment down below. Or maybe you just still really hate it, in which case, still leave a comment. We like comments. They are good fun. I like to read them when I'm in bed. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, then why don't you stretch your arm straight out towards that subscribe button and slap it in the face, and be sure to check out NintendoLife.com for all sorts of lovely Nintendo-related content. I've just realised they should have Lanky Kong as a character in ARMS, and be sure to check out NintendoLife.com for all sorts of lovely Nintendo-related content. Thank you again for watching. Bye-bye.